Okay, welcome again to all. It is my honor and pleasure to be together with you on behalf of URI Europe. I'm Angelina, URI Europe CC Liaison Officer, living in Sofia, Bulgaria, and I will be your technical or Zoom host during the next hour. Of the third session, Faith, Ecological Crisis and Coronavirus. Very interesting topic and part of the webinar series co-organized by Baraza and URI Europe on the occasion of the World Interfaith Harmony Week. I will provide some technical information and then we'll pass to our moderator for today, Reis from Baraza. The webinar will be recorded, so please mute yourself to have better sound unless you want to say something, of course, and we kindly encourage you to use the chat option during the whole session, because we would like to have an interactive webinar, and let us start to use this chat option right now. I encourage you and invite you to write your name, the place where are you calling from, write the name of your organization. Also, you can share some more information about your organization. Also, it is very important for us to have a feedback from you to understand how useful was this webinar, this lecture. Please take a piece of paper and take some notes during the lecture, and at the end, in the last 5 minutes, we will invite you to answer two very simple questions. First question is what you learn from the speaker, and the second question is what you are going to do with this information. We will shortly share these two questions in the chat, so you will have time during the lecture to think and take notes, and we will remind you kindly at the end to answer them. That is all from me for now, and I will pass to Reis from Baraza, our moderator, to introduce Baraza as an organization, and our great speaker, Dr. Reis Habito. Reis, to you.
Angelina, thank you for the introduction, and to your colleagues from URI in Europe who have been exceptional, Leila and Karima as well. Thank you for all the help and cooperation you've given. This is the third lecture, the webinar that we have. I normally begin with good afternoon, but I recognize now in the world of Zoom, it could be good afternoon for me, but good morning to you or good night to somebody else. But wherever you are, greetings to all of you. But thank you for being with us. To mark World Interfaith Harmony Week, as I said earlier on, we have a series of events that we are running. My name is Reis Habito. I'm the Secretary General of Baraza, which is an independent international non-profit organization founded in 2017 in Munich, in Germany. Baraza means council or meeting place in the Swahili language. A Baraza can be an informal meeting or an official council. It's a place where people from many different backgrounds meet to chat, to exchange ideas, and to solve problems. Baraza's work is expanding all the time. We were responsible for the concept, planning, and delivery of the exhibition, Tolerance, Understanding, and Coexistence, which is the Sultanate of Oman's message of Islam. This global initiative has been touring the world for more than 10 years. We've been present in more than 40 countries and have built up very good relations with many individuals and organizations to promote an international mindset based on tolerance in all areas of culture, religion, and understanding among nations. Please follow us on social media, and on our website, baraza.ngo, you'll be able to download a free interfaith resource for children. I'm mindful that some of you will be doing some homeschooling right now, and we have this, our coloring book for kids on world religions, available in many different languages. Please do download a free copy and encourage the next generation to take part in the very activity that we are celebrating today. As Angelina has said, I would also encourage you to use the chat facility. We want these webinars to be interactive and thought-provoking. And in the chat facility, please do write down what you've learned and what actions you might undertake to promote tolerance, understanding, and coexistence. It's really important that we deliver on how we're going to take lessons forward from these webinars. Listening and hearing from our speakers is wonderful, but what does it mean to us? How will we take that forward? And that's a challenge that I set all of us attending the webinar today. I am very honored that today's lecture is being delivered by Dr. Maria Reis Habito, who will deliver a talk titled Faith, Ecological Crisis and Coronavirus. Maria is the International Program Director of the Museum of World Religions in Taiwan. Maria, if you don't mind me saying, being the director of the Museum of World Religions, it has to be the best job in the world. That is absolutely wonderful. I wish I had that title. It's excellent. It really is. And you organize symposia and conferences on interfaith themes from your Dallas office. Mm-hmm. Maria is also the US representative of the Elijah Interfaith Institute and has served as an advisor to the Fetzer Institute Council on World Religions and Spiritualities. Maria is an authorized Zen teacher and has served as an adjunct faculty member of the Department of History and also of the Master of Liberal Studies program at Southern Methodist University. She received a Ph.D. from the University of Munich, and her published works include academic titles in German and English. Maria, thank you for gracing us with your presence. I hand over to you for the most substantial part of today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Rias, for this introduction, and also Angelina for setting the background and the introduction to our meeting today. So I would really like to thank Baraza and URI for the opportunity that you give me to share my thoughts with you today on religious values that can unite us in addressing the environmental crisis, and also on lessons that we can draw from the corona epidemic. I'm grateful to Michael Dickinson from Baraza for reaching out to me in 2014 with the proposal of hosting the exhibit on tolerance, understanding, and coexistence in Oman at the Museum of World Religions in Taiwan, which we were very glad to do. And I was also happy to meet both Georg Popp and then also Michael Dickinson during a museum conference in Munich about 2 years ago, and then to learn more about the fascinating story of how the Tolerance Project and Baraza came into existence and how that work is unfolding now, especially also with this wonderful connection to URI. So thanks to all of you, also for those who are here to listen. Just a little bit on my own background. I grew up in Saarbrücken, which is a small German town on the French border, in a Catholic family. And then I met my first Buddhist teacher, Master Shindao, who is the founder of the Museum of World Religions and abbot of the Lingzhou Mountain Monastery in Taiwan at age 18. And at that time, he was a hermit, unknown to most, and spending years in meditation in graveyards, followed by a 2-year fast in a cave. And I was a student of Chinese culture and language at Shifan University in Taipei at the time. And the monastery was founded in 1986 and now houses more than 100 nuns and monks. And so then I became the advisor to the museum building project in 1998. Just a little bit as a background. And that museum is based on Master Shindao's vision of it as an educational institution that furthers respect, understanding, and love between religions and cultures. And the content actually was developed in cooperation with a team from Harvard University at the Institute for the Study of World Religions that was headed by Professor Larry Sullivan at the time. And the design actually was by the Ralph Applebaum Company that also created the Holocaust Museum in Washington, among many other renowned projects. And so the museum opened on November 9, 2001, which was 2 months after 9/11. And so our 20th anniversary is coming up this November. But in response to 9/11, we immediately planned an ongoing series of Buddhist-Muslim dialogues to reach out to the Muslim community, to foster mutual understanding, friendship, and cooperation. And so those dialogues were really held in many places of the world so far. And it's because of that dialogue series that we were so happy to host this exhibit on Oman. Just that as a background. And if please check out the museum also through our website. It's mwr.org.tw, mwr.org.tw. And now the most recent project of Master Shindao, and I will show you the short video at the end of it. Can I go on?
Yes, sure.
Oh, yes, it's the creation of the University for Life and Peace in Myanmar. So that's the university is also based on the original vision of the museum, namely love for all forms of life. And that means, of course, now love for the earth, that earth of ours, which is threatened in its survival by the ecological crisis. So then, how can faith and religious values help us to address the ecological crisis? And so my reflections on the topic are nurtured by the traditions that I am most familiar with. That's the Judeo-Christian and the Buddhist traditions. And so I hope that during the discussions, we might also receive some feedback from some of you who belong to other traditions or who do not adhere to any particular faith. So what does the Bible say about creation? The overall theme that emerges is its goodness. God created the universe and everything in it and saw that it was good, that it was very good. So in the book of Psalms, creation is seen as reflecting the goodness and glory of the Holy One, the Creator. And so the response of the entire creation of the universe is resounding joy and praise and gratitude. For example, Psalm 19, the heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. In the heavens he has set the tent for the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom from his wedding canopy, and like a strong man runs its course with joy. Or Psalm 96, let the heavens rejoice, let the earth be glad, let the sea resound and all that's in it. Let the fields be jubilant and everything in them. Let all the trees of the forest sing for joy. Or one more example is Psalm 65, which says, by your strength you established the mountains. You silence the roaring seas. You visit the earth and water it. You crown the year with your bounty. The pastures of the wilderness overflow. The hills gird themselves with joy. The meadows clothe themselves with flocks. The valleys deck themselves with grain. They shout and sing together for joy. So our human response to the goodness, to the gift of creation, is living our vocation, our calling to be protectors of God's handiwork, as Pope Francis says in Laudato Si, the encyclical on the environment. And so this vocation he emphasizes is essential to a life of virtue. It's not an optional or secondary aspect of our Christian experience. And so then, in other words, recognizing the goodness and bounty of creation comes with our moral, our ethic responsibility to be good stewards, to use the bounty of the earth for the benefit of all, and to preserve it for future generations. As Pope John Paul II said, respect for life and for the dignity of the human person extends also to the rest of creation, which is called to join men in praising God. So if we can feel gratitude for the life that has been given to us, if we can cherish our own life and also that of others, So if we can also feel that sense of awe and praise about the sacredness, about the beauty and the wonder of life on these planets, on our earth, then we will be able to live from the spiritual center, from this core of our being, which also leads to a life of happiness and fulfillment. But here we may ask, what is happiness? I live in the USA. It's a country that defines the pursuit of happiness as one of the cornerstones of its constitution. But what Mathieu Ricard, the French Tibetan monk and translator of the Dalai Lama, who is called the happiest person on earth, points out, is that what we pursue often a kind of illusory, hedonistic, so pleasure-centered form of happiness. See, namely, our obsession with material wealth and comfort, with power, with status and image. So we only have to look at the social media to see how much they are a window for our own narcissism, for this time-consuming occupation with ourselves. And that really prevents us from seeing the suffering in the world and from earnestly wanting to do something about it. So that kind of hedonistic happiness is a treadmill that ultimately leads us to failure, because we can never have enough and we will always want to have more. So the Buddha gives us a very clear analysis of that kind of illusory happiness that is tied to our occupation with our egoic self. He calls it dukkha, dissatisfactoriness. Dukkha literally means a wheel that's not centered correctly on its hub, and it constantly rubs against something. So when we see our own small I as the center of the universe, there is of course always something that goes against that and threatens it, something that makes us unhappy, unable to take the things simply as they are. So then true well-being, true happiness or sukha is something that frees us from our self-occupation. It's something that can be learned and cultivated through meditation. And you know, there is really no secret to meditation. It only requires constant practice. So true happiness then is not found in aggrandizing the self, but in forgetting the self and being actualized in the myriad things, in the thousand or in all the things. That's how Zen Master Dogen, the Japanese Zen master of the 13th century, put it. Forgetting the self and being actualized in the myriad things. So in other words, true happiness is a state of being. It's a state of human flourishing in which that separation between self and others, so that separation between myself here and then the world out there, has been completely seen through as an illusion. And so that realization that the myriad things and I are not separate, that we are deeply interconnected, that we are one existence, that is the one which opens wide this power of love. That's the core of our being, as well as the core of the universe. And so it's that power of love that's true happiness. And so then the Avatamsaka, or the flower garland sutra in Buddhism, gives us a very beautiful image of this interconnectedness in the image of Indra's net, which covers the entire universe. And so each knob of that net contains a shining jewel. And if you look into one of the jewels, you see the whole entirety of all the other jewels reflected in that one jewel. And so this one shining jewel is your own heart and mind, that spiritual core of your being. So then, so far I have spoken about goodness, beauty, gratitude, responsibility, happiness, interconnectedness, and love as those values that can help us address the environmental crisis at this time that we are also still reeling from the COVID-19 global pandemic. And so perhaps allow me to also say a word about the expression environment. That word literally implies that there is something, us humans, at the center, and that everything else is out there surrounding us. But as I have just explained, that perception is self-centered and illusory. In the language of the Avatamsaka Sutra, each jewel is the totality of all the other jewels. So there is really no separate center and nothing surrounding it. We are not separate from our so-called environment. And therefore, it's more correct to speak about the ecosystem or ecology, and to know that we ourselves are an intricate part of that ecosystem, not something that's somehow detached from it or surrounded by it. So then once we clearly wake up to this fact of our interconnectedness with everything else on this earth, then we deeply understand that our lives, our choices, affect the totality of all the other lives in the universe. And so during COVID, our global interconnectedness has become very apparent and clear. So it's one of the important lessons of COVID, that the virus really knows of no barriers or boundaries. All of us have felt the pain of separation from loved ones, anxiety, uncertainty, the closing of our schools and businesses, playgrounds and houses of worship. And what's more important, so many of us also beheld and shared the pain of those who lost their health, their loved ones, or their entire livelihoods to the pandemic. And we have also witnessed heroic acts of solidarity and generosity that we are capable of when the situation calls for it. I volunteer at the St. Vincent Society at our church, and it was amazing how many more funds we were given just to help people who were affected by COVID than before. But so with all of that, we also painfully witnessed injustice, violence, and death in the killing of George Floyd by a police officer on May 23rd of last year, which had, of course, sparked protest movements in every city here in the US and also throughout the world. So after being isolated for so long by the virus, people of all ages, ethnicities, and skin colors came out in solidarity, marching together to speak out against and break those barriers of separation, racism, injustice, and violence that are so intrinsic to our capitalist society, which really systematically prevents so many from the pursuit of happiness. So this cry of George Floyd, "Please, I cannot breathe," is that cry that resounded among the demonstrators. And it's really the cry that is resounding throughout the entire earth. "Please, I cannot breathe." That's the cry of the earth itself. My skies, so beautiful and radiant, are now hidden behind gray smog. My air, so life-giving and fresh, is polluted. My soil, so rich and fertile, is poisoned. My rivers, lakes, and oceans, so life-giving and pure, are toxic. My forests, home to so many creatures and species, are being destroyed. And my ice cover, so strong and so timeless, is melting. My 4 seasons, so regular and sustaining, are thrown into chaos. And my beloved children are dying from hunger, neglect, social injustice, inadequate healthcare, from poverty, from violence. Please, I cannot breathe. So really, this ecological destruction and climate change, of which the corona epidemic is a symptom, are the major challenges of our 21st century. And this needs to be addressed now. On January 25, the headline of the Washington Post was this: Earth is now losing 1.5 trillion of ice each year, and it's going to get worse. So now, as the corona situation will ease with the availability of vaccines, and now that policymakers will have to rebuild our shattered economies, will they really listen to that cry? Please, I cannot breathe, and do what they can to promote a green, a sustainable economy? Or will they continue to close their ears and eyes, claiming that, green policies and carbon taxes will harm jobs and the economic growth? So will we wait? Will we continue to wait until it's too late? So then how can we make our voices heard as people of faith, of conviction? This really starts from deeply listening to the cries of the earth and trying to respond appropriately. So if Corona has shown to us how vulnerable all of us are, even though some of us so much more than others, it has also shown us how interconnected we are. It has also shown us that social media can come, that they can come together, that we can come together through the social media for worthy causes and for inspiring meetings, just like the ones that are now being organized by Baraza and URI, for example, without having to fly and to contribute to the carbon footprint. The skies have cleared up in many places for the first time due to the travel restrictions. So that's the lesson in itself. What will we make of it? So the corona crisis has also demonstrated that governments and people can come together in addressing an urgent crisis. So out of concern for the spread of the virus, governments have imposed isolation, quarantine, and other measures that people in most places cooperated in following. So then how about important measures for climate change, for sustainable ecology, for social reform and just healthcare systems? Can we come together for that as well? So luckily, the new government under Joe Biden in the USA is now taking steps in the right direction to undo a lot of the damage that was caused by the environmental deregulations of the previous administration. But again, will it be able to overcome the political divide in the US that stymies so many efforts to implement a Green New Deal? That's the question. The corona crisis has also brought home to us the lesson that we actually can slow down. Indigenous leaders have called the epidemic an opportunity to slow down and to synchronize our own rhythm with the rhythm of Mother Earth for healing. Why is it that we take these hectic lifestyles and the stress of modern societies as being normal? We can change to a more contemplative and healthy way of living if we really want to. And I think the corona crisis, of course, has also brought home to us more than ever, unfortunately, the reality of death, which each one of us will face sooner or later. That's really our shared reality. And the heightened awareness of it can help to inspire in all of us a greater appreciation for the preciousness and for the infinite value of each life. So to close, I just want to give you 3 examples of faith-based actions for the protection of the ecology. First, I'd like to mention Jojo Mether, who is the co-founder and director of the campaign Stop Ecocide. She really tirelessly works to to make ecocide an international crime, since so far there is no basic rule at the International Court that forbids damage to nature. So such a law would give the courts and the police the power of prosecuting polluting industries and actors. And it would also help to change our own deeply held mindset of separation between humans and the natural world, and help us discover the truth that we are really all part of one interconnected, wider web of life. The other one, and that's one that we are involved in, is Wilton Park, the Wilton Park project. That's in cooperation between the British government and the Vatican, which unites religious leaders and scientists in regular meetings to prepare for the 2026 Copenhagen Climate Summit through monthly meetings, in which religious leaders speak about the teachings of their religions and on the ecology, the teachings of their religions on the ecology, and also about the actions that they and their communities are engaged in to address the crisis. So last week, for example, we heard from a Sikh leader who spoke about their planting of millions of forests of diverse native trees that are threatened by extinctions, and giving us the blueprints of how other communities can also follow that example. And so then the last project that I would like to introduce at this point is our more recent project, the project of Master Shindao and the Lingzhou Mountain Buddhist Society, to establish the University for Life and Peace in Myanmar, in order to provide a comprehensive and interreligious and interdisciplinary approach to mitigate climate crisis based on spiritual ecology and love for the earth. So that university will take the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the UN for its guideline. And so in preparation for the university, we have held 3 international winter schools so far, 2 in Myanmar itself, and then the last one just last month via Zoom. And so the faculty and student body for these winter schools are both local from Myanmar, and then also from universities in Europe, Asia, Africa, and the US. And topics that we have addressed so far are such as addressing the deep roots of the ecological crisis towards new strategies, or healing the world, transformative action for ecology and technology. And our last winter school was on decision making. How do we actually come to decisions, and how do we enact them in view of the urge for ecological implementation? And so rather than me continuing to speak about that, I would like to share with you a short film clip of the last winter school that we still were able to hold in Myanmar last year in 2020. And for you to get a better impression about how we can bring spiritual ecology and science together to really address the urgent problems of our earth right now. So if Angelina could kindly help us in putting that video on the screen.
Leading students from Europe, the US, and Asia through the heat and humidity under the blistering sun, through spaces wide and narrow like this underground pipeline tunnel at the historical Gyeolpyu Dam built during British rule to observe the ecology that's been so far well preserved in Myanmar.
Was constructed in 1900, so it's a very fast reservoir.
This is Dharma Master Shindao, founder of Lingzhou Mountain Buddhist Society.
让这个学生呢能够了解我们缅甸水资源的这种关系，然后看是不是他们也能够提供我们什么好的想法。
Lingzhou Mountain Buddhist Society is working on launching the University for Life and Peace, an institution aimed at finding and solving ecological crises. This is the Winter School 2020, which took place in Yangon, Myanmar. Over the course of 2 weeks, lectures by prominent scholars and policymakers,
different parts of the earth face very different problems.
Panel discussions, group work, and presentations took place.
We are thinking about ways that you can help steer tourism to be part of the solution for this entangled, complex environmental problem.
The curriculum was designed to be interdisciplinary. Topics such as neuroscience, permaculture, environmental protection, and economics were covered.
You can make cities livable and sustainable by making them more ecological, by, if you like, imitating the rainforest.
In addition to science and technology, spirituality was taught as well. Each day began with yoga and ended with meditation.
这么多就是科学家、专家，然后呢，大家都对这种精神上的东西也是抱有一种很虔诚的这样的一种态度。一开始的前几天，我是稍微有点，就是整个人就是世界观在重塑，感觉就是思维更开阔了。
It's very important to marry, I think, the strong traditions of contemplation and ethics that Buddhism presents with the modern work in neuroscience on the brain.
I would like that if the students to go back to their universities, to their countries, with the feeling that there is something that happened, that it can be a change, and change not only for the nature, for the society, but for themselves inside.
For about 40 minutes, let us just enter into a place of peace.
Before each session during the day, a moment of silence was taken to practice focus. Dharma Master Shindao explained that ecology has its roots in spirituality, and when people find once again their spirituality, they will realize the symbiotic relationship they have with one another and nature. And only then can everyone work together to restore health to the planet. The curriculum included interactive lectures like this one on how the Lampi Marine National Park is engaging stakeholders in protected area management.
I think farming is the cornerstone of this community, what's built this community. And so I want to be ensured that with this new change, farming will not be forgotten.
他上课的方式跟比较传统的教授们上课模式不一样，他是用一个游戏的方式让大家一起来参与这一件事情，所以呢，这是很重要也很特别。
Students selected for the program came from disciplines including engineering, psychology, Buddhism, environmental management, and banking, making communication and working together a rather unique experience.
A lot of people have strategies which may seem completely outlandish to you if you're only used to one or two ways of thinking. There's just so many things that you don't consider if you're not around anyone who isn't like you.
A big part of what I have endeavored to bring to the students this time is really how to integrate a holistic approach to solving problems, as well as how to connect with our communities really from the heart.
I really liked that there was a conscious effort made to integrate spirituality and ethical concerns into the environmental and social issues that we were looking at. And I think that kind of approach is rare in modern environmental learning, and I think it's very necessary.
After a successful first one in 2019, this is the second winter school.
There is a most urgent need for action. And our winter school this time is about transformative action.
This year's theme was Healing the Earth, Transformative Action for Ecology and Technology. The curriculum was also improved with the addition of facilitators to help students from different academic and cultural backgrounds mix and interact during discussions. Lectures were slightly modified as well.
上一次我们是每一个老师来，然后讲一个他的专题。好，那因为学生突然吸收太多了，那他们没有办法去聚焦。那这一次呢，我们是用每一个议题的设计，然后让每一个变成是一个 panel 的讨论的方式。
我们的灵性跟这个世界是脱轨的，所以会变成现在生态很多的问题。和平大学希望生态知识呢、意识呢，我们也希望做出教育。冬季学校它是帮助我们教育课程的设计的一个引导。
Lingzhou Mountain Buddhist Society believes that Myanmar, at its current state of economic growth, has a great opportunity to set an example for the global community, how policies for sustainable development can be designed. And the Winter School and University for Life and Peace is ready to play a crucial role in the education of ecological protection protection through reintegrating science and spirituality.
So thank you for listening and for watching.
Thank you very much, Maria. That was wonderful, deep, thought-provoking, and I'm sure will lead to a lot of questions. Colleagues, I'm mindful that I know some of you have to head off at 5 o'clock our time. It'll be 6 o'clock Central Time. With your permission, we'll have about 10 minutes of questions, after which I'll hand over to Angelina to formally close the session, and of course the recording at the same time. If those of you are able to stay for another 10 or 15 minutes afterwards, we can continue the conversation. So it just allows everybody to hear as much of this as possible. But thank you, that was excellent. Who'd like to go first? Please use the chat facility or raise a hand and we will ask you your question. Marlies, thank you.
You have to unmute yourself, Marlies.
Okay, is that better?
Yes, now.
Still learning, okay. So I'd like to go back to the beginning, which is creation. Now, my project is comparing Quran and Bible stories. So putting them side by side with the text from Quran and Bible. And it's interesting that the creation story in the Quran is practically the same as the one in the Bible. There are just some minor differences. And I think it would be nice to stress that fact that even in something so fundamental as creation, you have these two religions really together. And from then on, both religions can, put into practice that we have to care for what is created, that it's not our success. Creation is not our success. It's God's success. So yes, I just want to point out that that is a nice thing to go straight to the Muslim tradition, bring them into the discussion.
Yes, it's beautiful, and it's very true and important. And this concept of stewardship, that we are responsible, we have to be responsible stewards of the earth, that is shared, and I think it's even more emphasized in in Islam. So that's really we can learn from each other from that. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes,
Mariana.
Just to read a book. Just a moment. This is new in Germany. The Bible, false understandings of the Bible, and it is made the German Bibelwerk, and they start with the Genesis and what is false understood, and always in journalism and so on. Always repeated wrong, and so I don't think this is also in English till now, but those who can read German, I would like to empfehlen it. Recommend you this book, really.
What's the title in German, Marianne?
Bibel falsch verstanden.
Bibel falsch verstanden. Okay.
Vom Deutschen Bibelwerk ist das herausgegeben, and because it is made because of all these false interpretations, and especially here. I said it started with the Genesis, because it is always said that the people should, or humans should make the earth untertan.
Subjected to themselves.
It is not written, and when you read it well, then it is really misinterpretation. So
it has created a lot of damage indeed.
yes, yes.
Maria, we have a question on the destruction of the earth as a crime, on the efforts around that. Could you say a little bit more? Could you elaborate a little bit more on that, please? Thank you.
So this is the effort by what I mentioned, that they are trying to get a legal approach in the criminal court to make genocide a crime. And I don't know at what state now that project is, how far this is already being realized, but that organization is strongly working to have it from a legal point of view. And I think there are other efforts, not only hers, in that direction to make crimes against the ecology, to address it from a legal point of view. So this is, I think, one of the more recent movements that people think about, to do something concretely. Because as now is understood by so many, we cannot, our individual efforts are very important, but we really have to have states and entities come in and work on this together. So also the legal professions, just to see, can we have genocide as a crime? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have a question here around, I'll take the spirit of the question, around working with different faiths on this. Just your thoughts and your experiences on that, Maria. The work that's been undertaken to, I guess, stretch out beyond the Buddhist and the Abrahamic faiths. What efforts are being made across the other religious and belief communities?
Oh, there are many. For example, in India, there is the effort by the Hindu community to clean up the Ganges River. And it's also an interfaith effort, I would say. Or for example, there is an effort to also clean up the grounds. You know, in India, there are not enough toilets for the local populations, for the rural population. So there are efforts like that to help people to build toilets so that all the waste doesn't go into the water and so on. So there are really worldwide, there are many efforts, ecological efforts on which people work together. And so this is one example from India, for example.
Thank you. Anybody else? Michael.
Yes, I have a question. Sometimes I hear about the argument that those catastrophic nowadays are a sign for the coming of Christ back, or of the Mahdi, or of Buddha Maitreya, so to say, for the end of this world. So we can't and we should not do anything against it because it is necessary. What do you argue against such, I think, nonsense?
You already called it nonsense, but I think you have to engage people in discussions if they are open to and willing to discuss. And this might already go, I mean, it's a dangerous way of thinking, that this earth needs to be destroyed in order that Christ or Maitreya, or even in Shia Islam, there is also that the next Imam can appear on earth. And luckily, I would say at this point, these are probably thoughts of a minority of people. And as long as the majority of people realizes that this is not something that we should base ourselves on, and to not take any actions, we could say it's almost an excuse. But it's, of course, it's, you know, how difficult it is to convince people who have some very deeply held convictions. But this is not the first time. There have been other convictions that we would reach the end of the world. I think in 2000, for example, there's so many crises and it never happened. So perhaps this would be one argument to say, you know, we don't really know. So we are enjoined by God to take care of this earth, and this is what we have to do.
Thank you. I go from one Michael to the other Michael, and then Angelina, I'll hand over to you after. Michael, you're on mute.
Wrong one.
Thank you. There
Wrong
we go.
button. I would like the speaker to explain, on 2 occasions you used the expression genocide, and I rather wondered if she meant geocide.
Oh, ecocide, excuse me. It was ecocide, not genocide.
Yeah. Well, you
Did
said,
it sound, did I say genocide? I meant
yes.
ecocide.
Ecocide, thank you.
Yes, a genocide was just to compare it to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in conjunction with genocide.
Thank you. Angelina, I will hand over to you, and then Maria, if you are able to stay on for a little bit longer, that would be great, just to formally end this part. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Reis, and congratulations, amazing lecture and so interesting video. Thank you, Maria, for this profound and very rich presentation. For me, it was so moving and interesting, and I would like to learn more about this winter school, but after the official closing, we'll ask you a question. So once again, thank you all for taking part in this webinar during the last 5 minutes of the official session. I would like to, first of all, to remind you that you have a small task to answer those 2 questions that we already put into the chat in the beginning. First question is one thing that you find good, at least one thing, because I think that you learn and find more than one thing in this presentation, but at least share, please, one good and useful thing that you find during the webinar. And the second question, one thing that you will do as a result of today's webinar. You can write one word, one sentence, one paragraph. It's up to you. You can answer one or both questions. It is not obligatory, but we would like to hear your voice. And while you are writing into the chat, I will tell you a few words about URI and URI Europe. With us, we have our chair, Duncan. Duncan, would you like to present URI, or I will say a few words if you prefer? You are muted. Unmute yourself.
Yes, can you please repeat the question, Angelina?
Because you are among us and you are a chair of URI Europe, if you want, you can say a few words about URI, or I can just briefly introduce the organization to those who are not familiar with our organization.
Yes, please go ahead, because not necessarily, because I think you are in a good position to do that as well, so no problem.
Not expected, and you are here, but okay, I will say a few words about our organization. So URI is a network. It's a global grassroots interfaith network. It's the biggest grassroots interfaith network and the fastest growing at the moment. We have more than 1,000 interfaith groups all around the world, and these interfaith groups are called cooperation circles. We call them cooperation circles. They're self-organized and self-funded interfaith groups, and they're at the core of URI. To form such a group, you need to have at least 7 people from at least 3 different religions, spiritual expression, or indigenous traditions, including atheists and agnostics. In Europe, there are 61 of those cooperation circles, and we are very happy to have Baraza as one of our member groups. They joined URI Europe family only last year, but Karima, Sheikh Bashir, and other members from URI Germany are in collaboration with them for many years, and we are happy that we already realized 2 editions of their amazing toolkit for children interfaith coloring book, which is very useful, and Reis already mentioned about this toolkit. if you want to learn more about URI, you can visit our webpage www.urieurope.org. And if you are interested when the next webinar of the series, it is next week on Tuesday, 5 o'clock Central European Time, and it will be on the title From Tolerance to Holy Envy. Very interesting topic. Welcome to join us again. And with that, I officially close the session. And for those who would like to stay, please stay. And for those who have another obligations, they can leave now the meeting. And we will continue. Thank you once again, Maria. Thank you, Reis. And thank you to my colleagues, Karima, the regional coordinator of Europe, and Leila, URI Europe CC liaison officer, who are also with us. And wishing you all a nice evening or nice rest of the day for those who are coming from other parts of the world. So the official part is closed now. Thank you, Reis. I will pass to you again.
Thank you, Angelina. Thanks for all your time and